Alright, so like I've said in the previous two videos, flag. As I said in the previous two videos, political music has been kind of dry, so I've just been going towards making videos about these quizzes. So we're back with ISideWith. We're going to see how much my political views have changed over time, which it's only been like 2 months, but I really don't know what else to do for a video, and this gets some sort of views, so we're just going to get right into it. We got environmental issues first off. Should the government increase environmental regulations to prevent climate change? Yes. I am not clicking on yes for that because I'm against incentives. So, yeah. Incentives. I want to make sure I got the right thing. Search Google. A thing that motivates, something that motivates or drives one to do. Oh. Tax incentive. Yeah, it's what I thought it was. Okay, so no. More. Should U.S. withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement? No. Somewhat. Should drilling be allowed in the Alaska Wildlife Refuge? No. Just no. I'm against subsidies. Should disposal products such as plastic cups, plates, and cutlery that contain less than 50% of biodegradable material be banned? Yes, and ban all disposable products that are not made of at least 75% of biodegradable material, most, because think about the plastic bottles that continue to fill landfills. That's what I'm thinking about. Recycling. You can't recycle products, so should the government give tax credits and subsidies to the wind power industry? No, and all tax credits and subsidies to the energy industry, most important. Should the government stop destruction of the Dakota Access Pipeline? Yes, and the government should never be allowed to acquire land by eminent domain. Most. Do you support the use of hydraulic fracking to extract and natural gas resources? No, we should pursue more sustainable energy resources instead. Most. Should U.S. expand offshore oil drilling? No, end all offshore oil drilling. Most. Should researchers be allowed to use animals in testing for the safety of drugs, vaccine, medical devices, and cosmetics? No. More. Should cities be allowed to offer private companies economic incentives to relocate? No, but punish them for moving jobs out of the country? Most. Should the government require children to be vaccinated for preventable diseases? No, fund public ad campaigns about the risks and benefits instead. More. Do you support the use of nuclear energy? Yes, as long as there is no public subsidy. Most. Should producers be required to label genetically engineered foods? That's not what GMO stands for. Yes, but I'd prefer to ban GMOs. Most. Should the government fund space travel? Yeah, somewhat. Should government increase spending on public transportation? Yes, and provide more free public transportation? Most. Do you support the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, Obamacare? Yes, but a majority single payer system would be even better? Most. Should the federal government increase funding of healthcare for low income individuals? Yes, but I prefer switching to a single payer healthcare system? Most. Should the government require employees of large businesses to be vaccinated from COVID? No, I think businesses should require vaccination, but not by government mandate? More. Should the government fund the World Health Organization? Yes, but only relative to the amount that other countries contribute? More. Should people be required to work in order to receive Medicaid? No, the vast majority of people who receive Medicaid are disabled? More. Do you support a single-payer healthcare system? Yes, this system guarantees healthcare for everyone? Most. Do you support the legalization of marijuana? Yes, and legalize, tax, and regulate marijuana instead of criminalizing it? Most. And the reason I put most on that is because all the people that end up going to prison for marijuana, that's why I put most on it. I don't really, other than that, I don't really care too much. But there's so many people that just get thrown in prison and things for it, and that's. Should cities open drug safe havens where people who are addicted to illegal drugs can use them under the supervision of medical professionals? Yes, this is necessary to reduce the drug overdose death rate. Or no, I like this answer better. Yes, drug abuse should be treated as a health issue, not a criminal issue? Most. Should there be more or less privatization of veterans' health care? I don't really know about this one. Less, we should increase funding to improve the current system instead. More. Should private businesses have the right to ask customers for their vaccination status? They should have the right. Somewhat important. Should the government regulate the prices of life-saving drugs? Yes, and we should socialize medicine and healthcare? Most. Should the federal government be allowed to negotiate drug prices for Medicare? Yes. Most. Should the government increase funding for mental health research and treatment? Yes, but only increase funding for personalized care instead of subsidizing pharmaceutical companies? Most. Should health insurers be allowed to deny coverage to individuals who have a pre-existing condition? No, it is immoral to deny health insurance to people with pre-existing conditions? Most. What is your stance on abortion? Pro-choice but ban after the first 3 months? More. Should the government continue to fund Planned Parenthood? Yes, their services reach far beyond abortions and can save many lives through cancer screening, prenatal services, and adoption referrals? More. Should health insurance providers be required to offer free birth control? Yes. More. Should transgender athletes be allowed to compete against athletes that differ from their assigned sex at birth? Yes, but only if their hormone levels are equivalent to those in the gender category in which they compete? More. Should gender identity be added to anti-discrimination laws? Yes, and the government should do more to protect minorities from discrimination? More. Should universities provide trigger warnings and safe spaces for students? No, college is meant to challenge students' thoughts and opinions so they are prepared for real life? Somewhat important. Do you support the legalization of same-sex marriage? Yes. Most. Should a business be able to deny service to a customer if their request conflicts with the owner's religious beliefs? No, all customers deserve to be treated equally? More. Should the federal government institute a mandatory buyback of assault weapons? No, increase mental health and background checks instead, most. Should gay couples have the same adoption rights as straight couples? Yes, as long as they pass the same background checks as straight couples, most. Should the federal government require racial sensitivity training for employees? Yes, and also include LGBTQ plus topics, most. Should states be allowed to display the Confederate flag on government property? No, is a symbol of racism, separatism, and treason. Should businesses be required to have women on their board of directors? Yes, and government should do more to require diversity in the workplace. That's only somewhat important. Do you support the death penalty? No, too many people are innocently convicted, most. Should the government support a separation of church and state by removing references to God on money, federal buildings, and national monuments? Yes, most. Should the military allow women to serve in combat roles? Yes, as long as they can prevent women from serving in combat roles is discriminatory, more. Should hate speech be protected by the First Amendment? Yes, because I don't trust the government to define the boundaries of hate speech, more. Should people under the age of 18 years old be able to receive gender transition treatments? Yes, but only for non-surgical treatments such as puberty blockers and hormone therapy. Should homeless individuals that have refused available shelter or housing be allowed to sleep or encamp on public property? Yes, and create more social programs to provide free food, clothing, and medicine. Most. Alright, let's continue. I said that. Alright. Should the government increase or decrease military spending? Decrease. Most important. Look it up. If you think the government doesn't spend too much money, just look it up, okay? Look up how much they spend relative to other countries. You'll see how much we spend. I'm not going to go into detail because I know a lot of conservatives are going to watch this and be like, we need to spend more on the military. Our economy is not getting broke up because of the military, which we spend way more than we do on social programs or anything else. Which it is. We spend way more than we do on welfare or anything like that. Should the U.S. accept refugees from Syria? Yes, most. Should foreign terrorism suspects be given constitutional rights? Yes, just like U.S. citizens. Terrorists should be given a fair trial in federal courts. Most. Should the U.S. remain in the United Nations? Yes, and use the UN. No, not protect interests. Yes, more. Should the U.S. increase or decrease foreign aid spending? I am satisfied with the current amount of spending. More. Should the military be able to use enhanced interrogation techniques such as waterboarding to gain information from suspected terrorists? No, torture is inhumane, unethical, and violates the Eighth Amendment. Most. Should the U.S. continue to support Israel? Yes, but respect Israel's sovereignty and do not dictate how it should interact with its neighbors. More. Should the U.S. remain in NATO? Yes, but NATO should focus more on counterterrorism strategies. Most. Should Jerusalem be recognized as the capital of Israel? Now, I know frick all about this. I don't know at all. I'm going with Bernie's answer. What was his answer again? No, Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine. I don't know. I really don't know. Somewhat important, I guess. I don't know. Do you support President Obama's move to lift the trade and travel embargo on Cuba? I feel like this is an outdated question, but yes, I do. More. Should the military fly drones over foreign countries to gain intelligence and kill suspected terrorists? No, the military has no, the military has no right to do so without congressional declaration of war. And I'm also against killing suspected terrorists. Most. Should the U.S. defend other NATO countries that maintain low military defense budgets relative to their GDP? Yes, and refusing to defend other NATO countries sets a dangerous precedent for the balance of global power. Most. Should the U.S. continue NSA surveillance of its allies? Alright, should the U.S. continue NSA surveillance of its allies? No, and abolish the NSA. Most. Should the government cancel production of the F-35 fighter? I'm pretty sure they haven't. I'm pretty sure it's complete. But I would say yes, if it was still relevant. More. Should the World Bank and International Monetary Fund provide financial aid to the Taliban government in Afghanistan? No. Now, kind of controversial, but I feel like no would be the correct answer. Somewhat important, I guess. Should U.S. sell military weapons to India in order to counter Chinese and Russian influence? No, we should increase diplomatic efforts to resolve conflicts peacefully. Most. Should the U.S. and NATO use military forces to defend Ukraine from Russian invasion? No. Most important. Should Ukraine join NATO? Yes. Most important. Now, I want to explain this one. We should not be the elites and the mainstream media, all of it, they've lying to you. War, sending military forces to Ukraine would just lead to war and will just benefit the government economically and give them resources and things. Biden's trying to cover up his son, possibly. That's what I believe. And then you got the Democrats. They know war will be beneficial for the midterms and then the 2024 elections. So yeah, no war. And also a bunch of people dying for no literal reason. Should there be more restrictions on the current process of purchasing a gun? Yes, require strict background checks, psychological training, testing, and training. Most. Should teachers be allowed to carry guns at school? No, this would increase the risk of accidental shootings. Most. Should victims of gun violence be allowed to sue firearm dealers and manufacturers? No, manufacturers and dealers should be only held liable for negligence. Most. Do you support affirmative action programs? Yes. More. Should the Supreme Court be reformed to include more seats and term limits on judges? Yes. Most. Are you in favor of decriminalizing drug use? Yes. Most. Should it be illegal to burn the American flag? No, this is a violation of free speech. This is only somewhat important, and it probably ain't relevant still. That was during the Black Lives Matter protests, if I'm not mistaken. Do you support the Patriot Act? No, and pass strict laws prohibiting the government surveillance without probable cause and a warrant. Most important. Should people on the no-fly list be banned from purchasing guns and ammunition? No, is unconstitutional to deny someone's rights without due process. More. Should the government be allowed to seize private property with reasonable compensation for public or civic use? Yes, as long as the landowners are fairly compensated and the projects will benefit the community. More. Should the government regulate social media sites as a means to prevent fake news and misinformation? No, the government should not determine what is real, fake or real news. More. Should the U.S. government grant immunity to Edward Snowden? Yes, invest the CIA and NSA directors instead. Most. Should internet service providers be allowed to speed up access to popular websites that pay higher rates at the expense of slowing down access to less popular websites that pay lower rates? No. Treat all traffic equally and continue the openness of the internet. Most. Should Juneteenth be declared a federal holiday? Yes, and we should provide reparations to Black Americans as well. More. Should social media companies ban political advertising? No. Somewhat important. Should members of Congress be allowed to trade stocks while serving in office? No. Most important. Should the military upgrade Air Force One? No. The current fleet is sufficient. More. Should there be term limits set for members of Congress? Yes. Most. Should funding for local police departments be redirected to social and community-based programs? No. Increase funding and training for police departments in higher crime rate communities. Most. Should police departments be allowed to use military-grade weapons? No. Extreme situations should be handled by higher agencies with specialized training and equipment. Most. Should convicted criminals have the right to vote? Yes, except for felons convicted of murder or violent crimes. More. Should non-violent prisoners be released from jail in order to reduce overcrowding? Yes, but they must perform community service on a daily basis. More. Do you support qualified immunity for police officers? No, and increase the personal liability for misconduct. Most. Should drug traffickers receive the death penalty? No, I do not believe in the death penalty. Most. Should prisons ban the use of solitary confinement for juveniles? Yes, it is severely psychologically damaging to young, undeveloped minds. Most. Do you support mandatory minimum prison sentences for people charged with drug possession? No. Most. Do you support limiting police unions' collective bargaining power for cases involving misconduct? Yes, and eliminate collective bargaining for police unions. Most. Should police officers be required to wear body cameras? Yes, this will protect the safety and rights of police officers and citizens. Most. Should the government hire private companies to run prisons? No, private prisons will sacrifice quality of care and rehabilitation services for profit. Most. Should U.S. build a wall along the southern border? No. We should adopt an open border policy. Most. Should illegal immigrants have access to government subsidized health care? No, and the government should never subsidize health care. Most. Should undocumented immigrants be offered in-state tuition rates at public colleges within their residing state? Yes, as long as they pay taxes. More. Should sanctuary cities receive federal funding? Yes. More. Should children of illegal immigrants be granted legal citizenship? Yes, and abolish all national borders. Most. Should local law enforcement be allowed to detain illegal immigrants for minor crimes and transfer them to federal immigration authorities? No, too many nonviolent immigrants are being deported. More. Should working illegal immigrants be given temporary amnesty? Yes, create a simple path to citizenship for immigrants with no criminal record. Most. Should Muslim immigrants be banned from entering the country until the government improves its ability to screen out potential terrorists? No, banning immigrants based on their religion is unconstitutional. Most. Should the U.S. increase or decrease the amount of temporary work visas given to high-skilled immigrant workers? Decrease. Decrease. Companies are currently taking advantage of this program to decrease wages. Most. Should immigrants be deported if they commit a serious crime? No, only if they've entered the country illegally. Most. Should there be a temporary ban on all immigration in the United States? No, we should increase the amounts of immigrants we currently allow into the country. Most. Should immigrants be required to learn English? No, we should embrace the diversity that immigrants add to our country more. Should immigrants be required to pass a citizenship test to demonstrate a basic understanding of our country's language, history, and government? No, most citizens couldn't even pass a citizenship test. Somewhat important. Should the U.S. increase restrictions on its current border security policy? No, we should implement an open border policy. Most. Should immigrants to the United States be allowed to hold dual citizenship? No, and revoke the status for those currently holding dual citizenship. Most. Should the U.S. raise taxes on the rich? Yes. Most. Should the government raise the federal minimum wage? Yes, and adjust it every year according to inflation. Most. Do you support a universal basic income program? Yes, everyone should receive an income to cover basic necessities, including food and housing. Most. Should employers be required to pay men and women the same salary at the same job? Yes, and businesses should be required to publish their salary wages for each position. Most. Do you believe labor unions help or hurt the economy? Help, but ban their ability to make political donations. Most. Should a government make cuts to public spend in order to reduce the national debt? No. These three, I want to answer all three of these. No, increased taxes, that's probably the most important out of them three. On large corporations. Should the government increase the tax rate on profits earned from the sale of stocks, bonds, and real estate? Yes, an increase to the average U.S. tax rate, 31.5% more. Should there be fewer, more restrictions on current welfare benefits? Fewer, and sure benefits go to those that need it most. Most important. Should U.S. raise or lower the tax rate for corporations? Raise. Most. Should welfare recipients be tested for drugs? No, only if they have a criminal history related to drug abuse. More. Should businesses be required to provide paid leave for full-time employees during the birth of a child or sick family member? Yes, the lack of paid sick leave is unfair to working men and women. Most important. Should the government use economic stimulus to aid the country during times of recession? Yes. Yes, the government should intervene to boost a recovery. Most important. Should the government require businesses to pay salaried employees making up to $46K a year, time and a half for overtime hours? Yes, and the government should do more to protect workers' rights. Most important. Should the government break up Amazon, Facebook, and Google? Yes, most important. Should the U.S. continue to participate in the North American Free Trade Agreement? No. Trade between the member countries has become too imbalanced. Yeah, a lot of trade comes from China now. More. Should the current estate tax rate be decreased? No, and increase at a progressive rate. More. Or no, I'm satisfied with the current rate. Should U.S. citizens be allowed to save or invest their money in offshore bank accounts? No, too many wealthy citizens are abusing loopholes in offshore banking laws to evade taxes. Most. Should pension plans for federal, state, and local government workers be transitioned into privately managed accounts? No, privately managed accounts will jeopardize the financial security of our senior citizens. More. Do you support increasing taxes for the rich in order to reduce the interest rates for student loans? Yes, and increase government funding so every student receives a free college education. Most. Should critical race theory be taught in K through 12 schools? Yes, but not until they are teenagers. More. Should the federal government pay for tuition at four-year colleges and universities? Yes. More. Or most. Should the federal government fund universal preschool? Yes, but funding should come from states instead of the federal government. Most. Do you support charter schools? No, we should focus on improving our public schools and increasing teachers' wages instead. Most. Do you support Common Core national standards? No, education should be handled at the state and local level instead of the national level. Most. Should the government decriminalize school truancy? Yeah, decriminalize it. Somewhat important. Should the government provide financial aid to families affected by COVID-related school closures? Yes. Most. Should the government offer students a voucher that they can use to attend private schools? No, we should focus on improving our public schools instead. Most. Should the president be allowed to authorize military force against Al-Quaida without congressional support? No, Congress should approve all military conflicts. Most important. I feel like that one is actually outdated. Should the U.S. assassinate suspected terrorists in foreign countries? No, they should be captured and given a fair trial. Most. Should the electoral college be abolished? Yes, and switch to a ranked voting system. Most important. Should foreigners currently reside in the United States have the right to vote? No, only legal citizens should be allowed, anyone who pays taxes. More. Should a photo ID be required to vote? No, and automatically register every citizen to vote when they turn 18. Most. Should the minimum voting age be lowered? Yes, any citizen that pays taxes should be allowed to vote. Most important. Should political candidates be required to release their current tax returns to the public? Yes, and also required to release their medical records. Most. Should there be a limit to the amount of money a candidate can receive from a donor? Yes, politicians should not be bought, or no. Yes, and ban all political donations and publicly fund elections. Most. Should a politician who has been formally convicted of a crime be allowed to run for office? Yes, as long as it was not a felony, violent, financial, or sexual crime. Most. Should corporations, unions, and nonprofit organizations be allowed to donate to political parties? No, and political campaigns should be publicly funded. Most. Should there be a 5-year ban on White House and congressional officials from becoming lobbyists after they leave the government? Yes, and ban all forms of lobbying. Most. Should foreign lobbyists be allowed to raise money for American elections? No, foreign interests should not be able to buy the influence of our politicians. Most. Just skip all that. Which quality is the most important unit candidate? integrity, consistency, honesty, effectiveness, intelligence, morality, transparency, diplomacy, commitment, common sense, determination, confidence, emotional intelligence, courage, health, compassion, communication, accountability, patience, humility, tough, ability, unify, strategy, and resilience. And it's loading. All right, so 92% with Bernie Sanders, 91 with AOC, 89 with Kamala Harris, 87 with Pete Buttigieg, 78 with Tulsi Gabbard, 78 with Joe Biden, 20 with Candace Owens, 20% with Donald Trump, 17% with Ben Shapiro, 15% with Ron DeSantis, and 10% with Mike Pence. Did I miss any? It says I missed some. We'll go over them. Should the president offer tax breaks to individual companies to keep jobs in the U.S.? No, but drastically increase taxes and import tariffs on outsourcing businesses? Most. Should the government prevent mega mergers of corporations that could potentially control a large percentage of market share within an industry? Yes, and government should break up existing mega corporations? Most. Should the U.S. increase tariffs on important products from China? Yes, China should be punished for artificially manipulating their currency? Most. Should government add or increase tariffs on products imported into the country? Yes, this will help. This will help create and save more jobs. Most. Should the government subsidize farmers? No, end all government subsidies and let the free market run its course. Most. Should the government acquire equity stakes in companies it bails out during recessions? No, the government should never own shares of private companies. Most. Should pension payments be increased for retired government workers? No, they should be reduced. More. Should the United States transition to a 4-day work week? Yes. More. Should an in-state sales tax apply to online purchases of in-state buyers from out-of-state sellers? Yes, exempting online retailers from sales tax is not fair to traditional stores. More. Do you support Trans-Pacific Partnership? No, this will incentivize companies to move jobs out of the country. More. Should the government classify cryptocurrencies as legal forms of payment? No, but the government should create an official digital currency. More. Should gig workers such as Uber drivers be classified as employees? Yes, if they work at least 40 hours per week. More. Should underlying technology of our financial system, credit, savings, investing, purchasing, transition from an institutionally owned industry to a decentralized protocol similar to the internet that is not owned by any corporation? Yes, but only if it's truly decentralized and cannot be manipulated by any person, group, or government agency. Most. Should the IRS create a free electronic tax filing system? Yes. More. Should the Federal Reserve Bank be audited by Congress? Yes, we deserve to know who the bank gives money to. Most. Would you favor an increased sales tax in order to reduce property taxes? Yes, dramatic, no. No, but decrease tax rates for senior citizens, most. Should every 18-year-old citizen be required to provide at least 1 year of military service? No, service should be a choice instead of an obligation, most. Should the U.S. go to war with Iran? I think this is outdated. No, the U.S. should encourage Iran to disarm through diplomatic channels, most. Should the government attempt to influence foreign elections? No, we should not try to influence any other country's elections or policy, most. Should the U.S. conduct military strikes against North Korea in order to destroy their long-range missile and nuclear weapon capabilities? No, we must use every diplomatic more, most. Should terminally ill patients be allowed to end their lives via assisted suicide? Yes, but only after a psychological examination to show they fully understand this choice more. Should marital rape be classified and punished as severely as non-marital rape? Yes, more. Should women be allowed to wear a niqab or face veil to civic ceremonies? Yes, we should respect all cultural traditions. More. Should local police increase surveillance and patrol of Muslim neighborhoods? Should local police increase surveillance and patrol Muslim neighborhoods? No, but this decision should be based on crime rates instead of race or religion, most. Should the redrawing of congressional districts be controlled by an independent, nonpartisan commission? Yes. Yes, gerrymandering gives an unfair advantage to a party in power during redistricting, most. Should a government pass laws which protect whistleblowers? Yes, most. Should the NSA be allowed to collect basic metadata, citizens' phone calls such as numbers, timestamps, and call durations? No, and abolish the NSA, most. Should a government raise the retirement age for Social Security? No, this will disadvantage low-income seniors whose life expectancy is lower than wealthier seniors, most. Just skip all that. I'm not doing that again. It resets every time, so. Let's see. I'll pause this until it's loaded. Oh. Well, it went down since last time. 89% transhumanist, 89% socialist, 89% green, let me guess, it says I have it. No, it says ballots complete. 86% peace and freedom, 84% democratic, 82% American solidarity, 50% libertarian, 25% constitution, and 17% republican. I am moderately pacifist, moderately democratic socialist, moderately big government, moderately Keynesian, slightly secular. I don't know why, I'm just slightly secular. Extremely tender, slightly authoritarian, extremely environmentalist, moderate privacy, moderate regulation, moderate isolationism, extreme democracy, centrist on decentralization and centralization. I am moderately collectivism, moderately multilateralism, extreme progressive, extremely left-wing, slightly globalist, extreme protectionism. GOP ain't even on that. Moderately politically correct and moderately multiculturalism. Let's see who it says I'm most likely to vote for. 91% Bernie Sanders, 9% AOC, not 88% Kamala, 85% Pete Buttigieg, 79% Tulsi Gabbard, 77% Joe Biden, 31% Candace Owens, 26% Ben Shapiro, 25% Ron DeSantis, 25% Trump, 17% Mike Pence. That's gonna end this video right here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that. Links in the description below. Tell me if there's new political music you want me to react to, all that. See you next one. Try not to kill each other, and peace.